Hello friends, Mandar here. I'm back with another video. Today we are going to talk about all the things pertaining to the F1 to H1 conversion or H1 process that is going on for fiscal year 2026-2027. We'll talk about the questions that students have. The scrutiny on OPT has increased exceptionally. There are a lot of RFEs and NOIDs that I'm seeing, even denials for OPT extension. There are important points to note, and I would like to provide you with the lawyer's perspective, how these things are working, and answer some important questions from F1 and H1 perspective. So watch this video until the end and let's get started. Nice to meet you, Gabriela. Thank you for joining again. And today we have an important topic regarding the H1B lottery. One of the things is an F1 students asked me, can I file my own H1B in the lottery if I don't have an employer to go with, or if the employer is not willing to sponsor an H1B for me?
Sure. And actually, this question does come up a lot. Unfortunately, a student is not able to file for themselves. An H1B is an employer-sponsored application. So the employer is the one that submits the H1B registration on the student's behalf. And then they're the ones that own the entire process and also apply for the H1B if the student gets selected.
Who can register a student or anybody for the H1B lottery?
So for the H1B lottery, only a US employer can register someone for the H1B lottery. And
Hmm.
USCIS has become a lot more stricter about reviewing
Hmm.
whether the company is legitimate, whether there is a real job opportunity, and whether the position actually qualifies for a special
Hmm.
calculation. So it's no longer just a simple online registration process, right? Like now you also have to take into account the wage levels, and that
Hmm.
also plays a role. But short answer, only a US employer can register someone.
Right. So just to follow up on that question, you said a legitimate US employer. So if a person says, okay, I have a friend who has a company and can they apply for my H1B?
Right. So if the company is established on their US laws, they have the right corporate structure. There is a system that they can show with evidence that there will be an employer-employee relationship, meaning that
Hmm.
the employee will be managed, supervised by the company. USCIS also takes a look at the financials of the company to see if they have the ability to pay a foreign national. So it definitely raises red flags if the company is relatively new and there isn't
Hmm.
the right corporate structure in place or the right financials. But it's a complex answer, right? Like it really depends on the type of company that the friend has. And also one of the questions that are asked for the applications is if there is a relationship or ownership of stocks of the employee with the company because they want to see that independent
Right.
relationship.
Another most common question is, I have multiple employers who are ready to file my H1B. Is that possible? Is that allowed?
So historically, that was allowed before. Now things have changed a lot, especially this year. Now the system is now beneficiary center, which means that the individual is only enter once into the lottery, regardless of the number of registrations submitted. USCIS also increased the scrutiny, in terms
Hmm.
of several companies applying for the same foreign national or trying to raise the wage so that they can have more chances in terms of the wage weighted level. So they have become very strict. So it's important, especially if an employee foreign national is looking to get sponsorship or offer letters from several employers to speak to an immigration attorney because more strict now. So short answer
Okay.
is now it's beneficiary center and the beneficiaries only enter the times that it requires the wage level. So if it's a wage level four times, wage level three times, and so on.
Hmm. Okay, got it. But so it's still advisable that you only go through one employer for registration and not multiple, because it might be taken negatively in terms of adjudication. So another question, what is the difference between lottery registration and H1B approval? Is it interchangeable, or lottery means the first time registration and H1B approval is anytime kind of thing? So that question comes up.
So I'm glad you raised that one because I get a lot of questions around traveling, right? Like, hey, my name was selected on the lottery. Can I travel? And people usually use registration and application of H1B interchangeable. They're completely different. So the first part around March, the lottery opens up, meaning that the employers can submit the names of the
Hmm.
employees, foreign nationals that they are trying to hire. Submitting the name for the lottery doesn't guarantee that you will be selected. It's just
Right.
the lottery, right? Then USCIS closes the lottery. They do the random a draw of the lottery depending on the number of entries based on the wage level. Then about, I will say May, they announce April or May, they announce to people the if they got selected for the lottery. So if you got selected for the lottery, then you're invited to apply. So then you submit the application of the H1B, and then it has to go through USCIS depending if you're submitting via premium processing or regular processing. That's the length of the time. If you're submitting via premium processing, you'll get a response within 15 business days. If you're submitting the petition with regular processing, it could take about 6 to 9 months. So it's very important that you speak to your employer to see if they're willing to pay for premium processing, especially if someone has F1 OPT and they're relying on the cap gap, which will breach their work permit and their status until October 1st, which is when the H1B kicks in.
Okay. Next question. What happens if your OPT expires before October 1st? This is a very common scenario that I'm coming across. So what's your answer to that?
Yeah, this relates back to what I was saying that there is something called the cap gap provision, which are
Hmm.
actually very important for students because in certain situations, if an F student has a work permit that's about to expire, right? That they will not make it until October 1st. Remember, if they get selected and the H1B gets approved, it kicks in, it starts on October 1st, not earlier. So let's say I'm a student and my work permit expires in July 30th, but my H1B got approved and it starts on October 1st. Then I can rely on the cap gap, and there's basically a breach that happens between my expiration and the start of the H1B, which is October 1st. And this, of course, will depend on the eligibility, the timing, proper filing, and also it is very strongly advised that the student speaks to their designated official and also immigration
Right.
attorney to go through the process to make sure that they enjoy the cap gap.
Okay. So there is a specific process that they need to follow to take advantage of this cap gap approach, right? And they should be working with their DSO from the university, I guess. Okay. Sounds good. Can you travel after S1 H1B selection? You know that you are selected. Now you are in the process of getting it approved. So can you travel?
So this is a very complex answer because all the cases are differently, but technically when people are worried about traveling when they get selected, what I advise them is the first one is, do you have a proper visa stamp, right? Do you have a
Mhm.
proper underlying non-immigrant status? If
Right.
you have all of these, then they're likely able to travel before filing. When I tell them to take a step back and explore their options is when the application, the actual H1B application has already been filed and it's pending either change of status or something else. Because once the application is pending with USCIS, like all the forms and all the documents, that's when it could trigger the $100,000 fee, right? So we don't want
Hmm.
that. We want people to always, always, always speak to their immigration attorney prior to getting on a plane, especially if they have a pending application.
Correct. Okay. No, that's a very good distinction. Um, what happens if you're not selected? I mean, in the lottery and you don't have your F1 to continue?
So not being selected doesn't necessarily mean that you're like out of options. And something that I tell people, especially people who are in school, is do not put all your eggs in one basket, right? Like people think of the H1B as their only option and they don't work on anything else. I know people who have tried applying for the lottery 3 times, like 3 years in a row,
Hmm.
and they didn't get selected. And now they're in a situation where they have days left and now they have to leave the country, right? So, not ideal. Very important for people who are listening right now to always think about plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, right? So, great. The H1B is still an amazing visa, right? But that shouldn't be your only option. So, while you're still applying for the H1B, At the same time, you should be exploring something else like O1 visas, right? Which are, you're not placed under a lottery. You have more agency because it's based on your achievements. So working on your career, getting that attention, meeting the credentials, that's not going to have a negative impact on your H1B. It's just going to help you because you're, working on your career, and that could later on set you in a position where you can qualify for an O1. Another good option that I tell people, especially younger people, is to look at the L1 and to look to work for a company that has international presence, because you can go to London for a year and then come
Hmm.
back into the US with an L1. L1s are amazing visas. If you get a managerial one, which is an L1A, you have 7 years in the US.
Right.
If you get
Right.
an L1B, which is for specialized knowledge, you get 5 years, and they're dual intent. So you literally, on the day that you land in the US with your L, you can start exploring permanent residency applications.
Right. Right. No, that's a great option that people have in case they don't get selected in H1B lottery. Oh, one of the things, what should you do before March? So, say for instance, you did not get selected this year. Are there any things that you can do to improve your chances the following year?
So, in terms of what you can do to increase chances, one of the recommendations that I give people as well is really try to work on your career. Like if you're a student right now and you can publish
Hmm.
materials, maybe you can work with a professor with research. Like try to make yourself as competitive as possible, because you want to kind of try to stay away from entry level jobs.
Hmm.
Given that, again, level wage one, right? One entry. So if you have experience, even as a student, right? Like if you have done research, if you have published papers, that makes you a lot more competitive. And when you apply for a job, you're more likely to get a level two or level three job than a level one. If you get a level two, as we know, you get more entries into the lottery, so that helps
Correct.
you. But also, like I said before, if you work on your career and you start working on the credentials, it could also set you at a really good place to later on apply for an O1.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So, one other question that I want, and this is really important because I'm coming across situations where people not just not getting picked up, but also getting some RFEs or denials on the regular H1 and also on OPTs. I have seen some people come to me saying, my OPT extension got denied. So, now can you just throw some light on what are the common reasons for these denials or RFEs that you come across typically?
Let's talk about the OPT first. Something
Okay.
that I see that is very common is the ESO making mistakes on the application or any of the forms. So just
Hmm.
because you have a specialized or someone that's supposed to be specialized working at the university doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to check your paperwork and make sure that they didn't make any mistakes, right? So always double check your documents and make sure that the DSO is not making a mistake. Now with H1Bs, some of the common issues that I see involve the specialty occupation concerns, basically saying that this job that I'm being offered requires at minimum a bachelor's degree in a related field or its equivalent. And people usually confuse that with my credentials, right? Like the foreign nationals credentials. And
Hmm.
when they get an RFE, they're like, why did I get an RFE? I have a bachelor's, I have a master's. It's not about the foreign national, it's about the role. So it's very important that if you're getting a sponsor for an H1B, that you go to the company's website, you go to job postings, and that you check what are the requirements for a similar job or the same job that they're hiring you for. So let's say they're hiring me, they're sponsoring me for an H1B as a software engineer. I go to the website of the company, I look at the job posting, I look at the job postings of software engineers, and they list bachelor's degree only, or they list
Hmm.
prefer bachelor's degree or strongly prefer bachelor's degree. That's grounds for denial because the HR person is not listing specifically that minimum requirement is a bachelor's degree in computer science, engineering, whatever the related field is. So you really have to be consistent with what you're putting forth towards USCIS with your H1B application and what's listed on the job postings. And a lot of people forget about that. And also, my
Okay.
last recommendation for people who are applying for an H1B is please do this, do this, do this, do this. That's what matters the most. If you're writing a small paragraph describing the duties that you're going to be performing at this highly complex, specialized job, it's going to get an RFE, a given that it's going to get an RFE. However, if you provide a very specialized description, we're talking about 30 to 40 full sentences describing in detail what you're going to be doing, the chances of the RFE decrease dramatically. You want to paint a picture of why they need someone with a bachelor's degree in your field. Why can't you just hire someone that just graduated high school, right? If you're saying
Right.
support software development, anyone can do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, has this been a recent trend where they're looking at these job descriptions saying desired or preferred, or is this something that has always been there? It's just that the scrutiny has increased. What's your?
It's funny that you say that. Do you remember back in 2017, 2018, when the
Mhm.
administration really went after H1Bs, especially in computer-related occupations?
Right. Yeah.
I literally handled hundreds. I remember it was not a fun
Yeah.
summer, right? Because I had
Right.
hundreds
Right.
and hundreds of RFP for H1Bs. The denial
Yeah.
rate went like skyrocketed, the RFE rate
Uh-huh.
skyrocketed. So it started from the back then where
Right.
just really started to look at the job postings and started comparing what the company was putting forth on their job postings and also what the foreign national was putting forth in their application. So that's when they started. Recently, like the last 2 years, I haven't really seen a lot of emphasis on H1Bs. I
Hmm.
think now the scrutiny is more on NIWs and EB1s.
Hmm. Okay.
But that's something that it stayed with me, right? Like it's in the back of my
Yeah.
head. So,
Exactly.
if I know what I know and I saw what I saw with all these hundreds and hundreds of
Right.
RFPs, why wouldn't I implement that? Why wouldn't I give
Correct.
that advice and that
Correct.
guidance to my clients when I know that it's something so simple as, hey, just write 30 full sentences describing your job, you know?
Right, right, right. And that is a good point because whatever is the job description is not in the hands of the person who is applying or candidate, right? It's basically the company saying, okay, we need this. But what is in your hand is, like you said, that summary of what you will be doing towards this
Mhm.
job. That is basically important. So that's a great point. I think those were all my questions. Anything that I have missed asking about the H1B lottery or
I think we're good.
no, that's okay. No, thanks for all the details about the process, as well as all the pitfalls and RFEs clarifications that will greatly benefit the audience.
And that brings me to the sponsor of today's video. Have you ever done the Google search of your own name? Look what I have found when I did mine. Here's what comes up. While some of this information is relevant, the other makes me uncomfortable that my information is exposed for a sale like this. Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, or anybody else who may want to target you. Your full name, email address, home address, your relatives' names, health information, it's all out there. That's why I have been using Aura, sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out request for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, or other sensitive information. Aura does so much more to protect my information and my family's information from online threats I can't see. I get other features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more without having to download several different apps. It's really easy to set up, and best of all, I get everything for one affordable price. You may already have one or two of these tools, but not having Aura is like locking the front door but leaving your back door wide open. Aura is always on, doing the hard work of keeping me safe so I can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to my link which is on the screen and in the description and start your free 2 weeks trial. So protect your information, your family, and have a peace of mind. That's Aura.